Hello, guys. Today I have compilation about Trump caving on his tariff against China.
Peter, can you help us understand what happened behind the scenes?
Well, look, I think everything that Christine's been talking about has obviously influenced the people around the president. They don't want, obviously, to head into a global recession. They don't want to have empty shelves. He may talk about how we can get by with fewer dolls and pencils, but the truth is, shortage on consumer goods is never good politics. So, you can make the argument, and I think his people do make the argument, this is all part of his technique of negotiating. You go high at the beginning, you act tough, you beat your chest, you say, I'm going to absolutely destroy you with these monster tariffs, and then you sit down and actually start to cut deals that bring it back down to normal or closer to normal. But I think you're right, Katie, to point out that this is still not normal, right? And Christine and Justin are smarter about this than I am, but it seems to me that a 30% tariff is still a 30% potential increase in the cost of goods, or let's say even half of that is passed along to the consumer. Let's just say it's 15% higher prices on consumer goods. That's higher than the highest inflation rate during the Biden presidency. And inflation was one of the things that killed Biden's presidency politically. So, 30% is obviously a whole lot different than 145%. I think what people are taking from that is a sign of a de-escalation, and they hope for a further de-escalation. But let's remember that 30%, as you rightly said, Katie, is still a big deal.
After all this, the trade war is basically back to where we started in April. Here's my take. After 40 days of chaos, who gained what, who lost what? Started with China. Some of the manufacturers hit trouble, but honestly, I think they can bounce back now. Plus, China walked away with a global reputation for not backing down from US pressure. And the US, they started the trade war, now they are back to square one. Lost a major buyer for their beef, soybeans, and oil. And again, a shiny new title, unstable trading partner. Globally, you tell me who caved. Meanwhile, shipments got delayed everywhere, including medical devices patients actually need. And the stock markets being on a roller coaster for weeks. After all this noise, biggest winner, the folks around Trump. Biggest losers, probably European luxury brand caught in the crossfire. One thing to watch, China's rare earth export restriction still in place. And since these are critical for US military industry, that's probably the next big bargain chip in the 90 days reset window. Bottom line, the trade war didn't end. It's just a reset. More negotiation coming. If you want more takes like this, follow me. Please consider subscribing to support this channel. And this is the best way to keep me going. Thank you.
So what just happened? The Trump administration announced a deal, quote unquote, with China in which we lowered our tariffs back down to a 10% additional tariff over the original levels. And China then reduced their retaliatory tariffs to 10%, which is exactly what China had been offering, quote unquote, from the very beginning of this. So remember that this is exactly what China was saying, was that if you raise tariffs on us, we're going to raise them on you. And then they just kept trying to one-up them, and that's why it got up to 145%. So we just went back to where China had demanded that we be, which is that they get to give a retaliation against ours, and that should be the end of it. Now, of course, Trump is saying it's for 90 days, which seems to be the standard pattern. And of course, the biggest reason why that's a disaster is that because it's only for 90 days, businesses cannot plan for the long term with any degree of certainty as to what is going to happen. Why would you build a factory in the US when you have no idea what the tariff is going to be long term? Nobody can make any plans. It takes years to build factories, and no one's going to do that if they have no idea what the tariff regime is going to be in the future. This 90-day thing just continues to depress the US economy. During this time, China has inked all sorts of free trade deals with Europe. They've made all sorts of agreements to import and export between other countries besides the US. So we have been cut out of billions of dollars of deals as a result of this fiasco with the tariffs. In the end, we're just back to where we started, which is what China had been saying, is that they get to retaliate if we're going to tariff them. And at the same time, we don't get the benefit of any kind of certainty because it's only for 90 days.
You can bully everybody, the Europeans, Africans, Latin America. Don't try to bully China. The United States of America is under enormous pressure economically from the stupid, dumb trade war that the US President Donald Trump started with China, and now they are feeling the effect of it locally and otherwise. So the US and China have finally agreed to suspend the tariff and trade war for a period of 90 days in a conversation initiated by the United States of America with talks going on in Switzerland. Well, the US president started a trade war with China, and now America is feeling the full force of the power of the Chinese economy. The people that will suffer on both sides are the Chinese people and the American people. Well, the Chinese people are far more resilient, they are far more tolerant, and they have a government in place that is stable and will remain for the next 5 or 10 years. Trump have just 4 years to deliver, else Trump himself and the Republican Party will be out. This is the good thing about China. They have political stability. In America, you have this fluidity of power change every 4 years. That is not the only situation. The American economy is rotting from the core, and starting a trade war with China at this point in time is the dumbest idea in the world.
Yesterday, we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiators continue on the largest structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States, and they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs because they don't want to pay 25, 50, or 100% tariffs, so they're moving them back to the United States.
His MAGA followers are going to say he won the deal because they don't understand basic math.
Latest on the president's trade war, and news breaking overnight that China and the U.S. have reached a short-term agreement. Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, is tracking the latest on this trade deal. Good morning, Rachel.
Michael, good morning to you. And this is a breakthrough in talks between the world's two largest economies, but it's also a dramatic retreat from President Trump's 145% tariffs that he imposed on Chinese imports. After all of the tough talk and hard lines, both sides agreeing to dramatically roll back their tariffs, at least for now. This morning, the Trump administration emerging from a marathon weekend of negotiations, announcing the U.S. has reached a trade deal with China to significantly lower most tariffs for 90 days.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels.
The U.S. agreed to roll back its steep 145% tariff on Chinese imports to 30%. And China agreeing to lower its tax on American goods from 125% to 10%. For weeks, the president has been defiant about keeping his tariffs in place, even as markets tumbled and retailers warned their shelves could go empty.
I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and you know what I'm doing, too.
China took a hard line, too, insisting no matter how long the trade war lasts, will never yield. But just as both sides touched down in Geneva, Switzerland for those high-stakes talks, the president with a change in tone, suggesting he would be willing to drop his tariffs even lower to 80%. The deal the U.S. reached is much lower than that.
We concluded that we have shared interest. The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling.
On Wall Street, stock futures surging as the U.S. and China return back to the negotiating table in hopes of reaching a long-term deal. So investors are rejoicing this morning, but the full economic impact of this on and off again trade war still remains very unclear at this point. That question will be answered likely in 90 days as these two sides continue their negotiations, Michael.
Yeah, still a lot of that is still unclear, Rachel. But Rachel, the president posting on social media that he will sign an executive order aimed at lowering prescription drug costs.
Yes, Michael, the president says he'll be signing that executive order in just a few hours before he heads off on this foreign trip. It is aimed at lowering the price of prescription drugs. The goal here to force pharmaceutical companies to charge the U.S. the lowest price that they charge other companies. Now, if implemented, this would likely have the largest impact on drugs covered by Medicare and that are administered in a doctor's office. But the White House not releasing any other details this morning, and implementing this could be very complicated, Michael.
All right, Rachel Scott, thank you so much.
You guys remember when just 4 days ago Trump said he wouldn't touch tariffs?
China says in order to have substantive negotiations, you have to bring down your 145% tariffs. Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
Oh, it looks like he was willing to bring those tariffs down. Bit of a flip-flop. Kind of folded like a piece of paper in an origami class. And you guys remember the whole Liberation Day announcement? Wasn't the whole point of tariffs to liberate our country, bring manufacturing back to America? What happened there? And for anybody saying that, oh, but the market is doing so great, look at where we started. This was the day he announced tariffs. This is the day he removed tariffs. We literally are at the exact same point where we started. Except now China has tons of new trade deals with other countries. Brazil, Australia, the European Union. Dude, they were in Switzerland talking about a deal. We had to go crawling on our hands and knees to Switzerland to basically beg them to talk with us about tariffs. The president has made himself look so weak. He has made the country look so weak. He has put us in a terrible situation, and all so that we could be back at square one with the stock market. And guess what? People on the right are still out here going, we're winning. Idiocracy.